Let's look at the project-based learning sheet for the chapter Buildings, the House of Mirrors. We will tackle some learning concepts, outcomes, and objectives in this learning sheet. In this learning sheet, we will cover the concepts of verbs and nouns. The outcome expected for this learning sheet is for learners to be able to respond to simple instructions and announcements in English made in class and school. They will be able to respond verbally in writing in English to questions based on day-to-day life experiences, an article, story, or poem read or heard. Once this learning sheet is done, learners will be able to recognize verbs with the help of pictures and word cues. They will be also able to distinguish verbs and nouns. Now, let's look at the leading question. Think. What words tell us about actions? Let's prompt learners to think about what verbs help them think about certain actions that they see. Learners may come up with simple action word examples like run and walk. Now, let's move on to some activities to help them understand these concepts a little more concretely. Activity 1. Verb Picture Match. Here, for every activity, follow the materials required and the instructions given by the character. Here, we will look at pictures given carefully, read the words in the first column and match them with the words in the second column. As you can see, on the column in the left, we have pictures of actions, and on the column on the right, we have words for these actions. Prompt learners to match the pictures to their corresponding action word. You can give them examples to help them do this. Activity 2. Actions done at school and at home. Once again, we will look at pictures given and think about what action is done at home or school and write them in the correct box. Here we have different actions that are both done at school and at home. Prompt learners to think of these actions. Ask them to focus on one particular action at a time and think about if this action is done at home, school, or work. To help them understand how actions are used in context and with the right prefix and suffix, ask them to focus on the understand box, where a small little information is given about using the ing form of a verb. An example is given where learners can understand why we use ing, and a box is given for practice where learners can put in examples of their own. Activity 3. Let us hunt for more verbs. In this particular activity, we may need flashcards with verbs and nouns and 2 bowls. Let's look at how to do this activity in the classroom. Here, we will make groups of 2 sets of students and we will prepare flashcards with verbs and nouns. And we will have 2 bowls, one labeled action words and one labeled noun words or naming words. We will use different cards and place them in front of the learners, both containing action and noun words. Learners will have to pick which cards go into which bowls. Once that is done, learners can talk about the relevance of each action in their day-to-day life. Use the action verbs and nouns described and fill the puzzle below, catching the right form of the verbs or nouns in the puzzle box. Activity 4. Reading Comprehension. Here, a small excerpt is given of a story of two frogs. Once the learners have read the story, have them answer the questions below. This is a small reading comprehension activity to help them extract information from a passage and answer questions. Activity 5. Interview and ask your parents the questions below. This activity is supposed to help learners bond with their communities at home. Encourage learners to talk to their parents, their peers, elders in the family, and so on, and ask them the different questions placed in these dialog boxes. For example, let them talk to their parents about what babies do everywhere and find answers for these questions. Now, we have come to our creative space activity. Here, learners will identify nouns in the classroom, write sentences that describe how these objects are used using the correct verb. An example of this type of identification and sentence construction is already given for the learner. Finally, we come to our self-assessment questions. These questions can be used to assess if learners have understood the concept of noun and verbs clearly. Once that is done, learners can move on to practice answering in the OMR sheet. This will help them prepare for competitive exams and the format of answering in these future exams.